Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. Day 2 of the 2022 NFL Draft just finished up, and we're going to give you guys our thoughts, takes, storylines from kind of a crazy day 2 of the NFL Draft. Before we do, just wanted to thank you guys for all the support. We love talking college football. We appreciate all the comments, the subscriptions to the channel, the likes on the videos. Anything NFL Draft, anything college football, we love talking about it. We appreciate you guys supporting. And if you do like the content, go subscribe to the channel. So let's get into it. Biggest storyline of the day, quarterbacks sliding. Something we talked about a lot going into the draft is not a lot of these quarterbacks were worth top 10, top 15, top 20 picks. We didn't expect teams to be rocketing up boards like we saw last year to go get a quarterback. That being said, I didn't expect the quarterbacks to slip as much as they did. Dill, why do you think that is? What are your takes on that?
I think the key thing is like Malik Willis has the tools, but the game on the field was not really in the ballpark of what you need, I think, in terms of like just being able to trust that he's going to step in and be your, like, manage the game properly, because there was so much backyard football. There were so many really egregious missed throws. And yeah, he's talented as anyone we've really seen in a bit. But you didn't see anywhere near the consistency you want. And I think that, and then on the other side, you got guys who just nobody dominated games. All the really good quarterbacks were
besides Kenny Pickett, who did go in the first round. Nobody really looked great. Desmond Ridder kind of, but it was against a little bit of a weaker opponent. He wasn't asked to do that much. I'm just surprised that teams like the Falcons, like the Seahawks, in round 2 weren't willing to work with those projects. We know guys like Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Malik Willis, they're all projects. But like,
obviously the Falcons, I think that was a really nice pick getting Ridder that late, I think in the 3rd round. So it's
Tennessee Titans too, Malik Willis. I love that. I love it. I love the fit.
Yeah, because they're going to need to replace Tannehill anyway, and he'll probably give them a year of stability, and then they're probably gone with Tannehill after this, and hopefully they have something with Malik Willis to turn to. But yeah, and I don't know. It's like Sam Howell, you just never saw be good enough when the talent around him wasn't just staggeringly good, and so they're just like, the guys just weren't like great prospects. So no one's falling in love with these quarterbacks, and that makes them prone to slip a little bit.
The saying of, if you don't have a quarterback, taking swings, didn't really apply. And I think that a lot of it had to do with just the depth and good players that you had. It was something we've talked about a lot. This is a very deep class. It's not necessarily super talented like we saw last year with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, but it is a very deep class. There are a lot of guys that I liked a lot who are getting picked late in the 3rd round, and there'll be a lot of guys that I like in the 4th and 5th round who are still really good players and who have a chance to contribute week 1. The quarterbacks weren't really that. Still, the second storyline, and I, for the life of me, don't get it. I was asking, shooting you questions, shooting all our buddies questions.
Can't make sense of it.
I just the medicals, I guess, were a problem. He should have had a shoulder surgery that he opted out not to get. I'm guessing we'll get some more clearance and guidance on what the deal is with that. But from the play on the field, and if it's a simple, we just had questions about his size and speed, I just don't get it.
If that had a thing to do with on-field play and athleticism, then that's just the stupidest. It has to be medical, because it's like every GM can't be that like out of their mind that they can't see that this is a really, really good linebacker.
This was a guy that we had a top 20 grade on him, I believe. Maybe it slipped. Yeah, 21. I mean, we liked this guy a lot. He was our linebacker 1. He ends up falling. The Eagles get an absolute steal. I mean, we were mocking the Kobe Dean of the Eagles at pick 18 or pick 15. And then they get him at the middle of the 3rd round. And
they get to pair him up with the big dog again and keep him clean and let him run.
And it was I actually do love that. That's a great point. Pairing him up with Jordan Davis, because that was another knock, if you had a knock on the field. And this was like, are you going to pick him with a top 25 pick? It wasn't if he's going to slide the date like to round 3. Was how's he going to look when he doesn't have Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt in front of him? He looked good. I'm happy I'm happy that he stays with Jordan Davis.
And on the linebacker front, just like even Christian Harris is puzzling to me. I don't know how he fell below some of these other guys who were picked higher than him. He's a guy who, coming into this year, you could have argued he was going to be a top 10 player. And he passed up for a lot of linebackers who I think weren't even close.
He was starting to put it together. You saw him putting it together towards the back end of that season. I think the biggest knock was just wasn't seeing the field like a NFL linebacker yet. He definitely started to. He's another guy that I have a lot of questions about. And then the last storyline, if you will, of the day 2 NFL draft, and the storyline of the NFL draft in general is just the run on wide receivers. See guys like Christian Watson, Wendell Robinson, guys that were George Pickens, we were high on. We were high on all these guys. But we weren't that high on them. If you would have asked me if there's this many wide receivers going in the top 60, I wouldn't have said yes. But I think what we're seeing was all these free agent wide receivers are asking for so much money, like what the Tennessee Titans did. Hey, we're going to cut ties with A.J. Brown. We're not willing to pay him all that money, and we're going to go replace him with a rookie wide receiver. I think a lot of teams are kind of taking that approach. It's probably why we didn't see Deebo Samuel on the move. People didn't want to shell out the amount of money that Deebo Samuel is probably going to ask for. And so you see the alternative. Let's go draft wide receiver.
Debo's because that gets into it. Like, you need to be a really, really good wideout to command these dollars. And I think you got guys like the AJ Browns, the Debos who haven't, like AJ Brown with the health, Debo really just putting 1 year together. And then you look at this draft class where you got a guy like John Mechie and like a super productive wide receiver who is probably going to be just a productive. He's probably not going to be an all-pro, but they'll be really good. A Wendell Robinson will be able to do a lot of good things. A Christian Watson who will, like, you got a very deep group of players who, they're not maybe going to be Debo or AJ Brown,
but you're not going to have to.
They're going to be dependable guys.
You're not going to have to pay them all that money. I think that's the biggest thing. Christian Kirk getting that money to go to Jacksonville kind of just skewed the wide receiver market. The Jacksonville Jaguars might have impacted the draft more than anybody with how they paid Christian Kirk, because now the wide receiver is just flying off the board because no one wants to pay the wide receivers in free agency. That's kind of the storylines, the big storylines that we took away. Dill, let's get into the actual picks. What were some of your favorite picks of round 2 and round 3?
The Baltimore Ravens are putting together a draft for the ages, and what they're just doing is drafting guys who seem to be sliding for whatever reason. Like Ojabo, I mean, that's a top 10 talent if he's totally healthy. Travis Jones feels like he should have been picked way higher than what he is in the 3rd round. So you just got, they're just picking these super talented players who played really good college football, and Ojabo with the health, Travis Jones with probably consistency more than anything, but just getting some really good ball players.
That was the story of the Ravens draft, is we're taking the best players available who are sliding. They did in the 1st round too. Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum, and then they did in the 2nd round with David Ojabo, who obviously has the injury problem, but Mike McDonald knows him well from Michigan, goes up and gets his guy. And then they get Travis Jones in the 3rd round, who we were mocking Jordan Davis to the Ravens. The Eagles obviously jumped up and took Jordan Davis to pick before the Ravens. And we've been saying, if you can't get Jordan Davis, go get Travis Jones later. And that's exactly what the Ravens did. I agree with you. I think they're putting together one of the best classes that we've seen. I think one of the picks that stood out to me was he's down here. Give me a second. Nick Bonito to the Broncos, because he's one of the best pass rushers. You had him and Perrion Winfrey slid because I think they weren't as consistent in the run game as you thought. But Nick Bonito is one of the more talented pass rushers that we've seen in this class. Falls to the last pick of the 2nd round. I think that was also a nice little pick for the Denver Broncos. It's an interesting class. I think the lack of consensus big board we saw kind of rear its head. Guys
that
like
was
Tyquan
a
Thornton,
draft.
a guy that we had bottom of the like a day 6 or round 6, round 7 guy. He goes in the 2nd round. Obviously, Bill Belichick traded up for him to do that. You don't really see him do that much. That was an interesting pick.
Bernie Ryman falling as low as he fell. Like, there's just like some not weird. I mean, Andrew Booth, like, you'll just scroll by him.
Yeah.
Just some guys like there were some good picks because, again, the way that the wide receivers were picked, and arguably you could say a similar thing about the linebackers, is they were run very hard very early, and it left you, if you weren't trying to only get wide receivers, you could get some really good players on the back half of the back end of like the second and third rounds. Like Sean Ryan, I'm looking at for Green Bay, perfect for this situation. A guy who you're going to slot him in at guard probably for a year or two until Bakhtiari is gone, and then I think he'll be perfectly able to play tackle. If he can, you'll still have a very good guard in my mind. So just like, I don't know. You got guys who really fell, and you got good value. I'm sure you're looking at Leo Chanel, and
he's one of them. But in the Chiefs, that's another thing. The Chiefs got some of my favorite guys: McDuffie, George Karlaftis, Leo Chanel. Like they had a really good draft, I thought. David Bell, I totally didn't even know he went to the Browns, to be honest. I was getting lost in the chaos. They must have snuck that one in. That's a nice little pickup. He's a guy that we liked a lot in the draft process. Obviously didn't test particularly well, and he fell a little bit. Got to talk to him about that because I do like him to the Browns. Let's look at the best players available and the guys who are sliding into day 3. Some of the guys that you were very high on. I mean, obviously Sam Howell. We've already talked about that. Just the massive question marks that you see. Perrin Winfrey's a guy that I absolutely love. I'm surprised that nobody took him just because of the dominance and pass rush you saw. I think you put him at the 3 tech in a little bit of
Perrin Winfrey, I feel like it's going to be a fairly, at least at the worst, he'll be a productive NFL pass rusher on the inside.
Yep, I agree. Isaiah Spiller and Damian Pierce are running backs who fell. I didn't like Isaiah Spiller. We've kind of made that clear. Damian Pierce was a guy I like. I was not expecting him to fall until
they're really just gassing up these wide receivers because like Kobe Bryant's a very good. Darian Kinnard's a very good player.
Kingsley Enagbare is another guy that was getting picked in the first round in mocks in February.
You arguably could say that you have some very good linemen. I'm looking at really 3 and Jamari, Rashid, and Darian, who all I think are going to be starters. Whether they're playing guard or tackle, I think they all 3 have position versatility. And that feels like you could have value, especially because people weren't taking offensive linemen. They just
you could probably throw Zach Tom in that mix too. Zach Tom's a guy that I like. Max Mitchell's a guy that's falling. There's Justin Ross. That's an interesting guy that we just didn't know how to evaluate. I don't even think we put him in our final position ranks just because you just don't know what to do with him. You obviously is a first round talent, but the injury concerns are massive, and it looks like teams are just really shying away from guys with medical red flags.
Yeah,
like Kobe Dean, like a Justin Ross. It's such a deep class. Like there are so many guys that I have top 60 grades on that are still available, and guys that I really like. Michael Clemens as well. You could put in there. Carson Strong is still on the board.
Little surprised to see Brandon Smith falling this much. And again, not a player I'm in love with. I think people overrate his quote tools because, like, yes, he runs fast in a straight line, but he doesn't strike me as an explosive or particularly strong athlete. So that's how it's like, and the play just wasn't even in the ballpark of what you kind of are looking for. So you're making big projections on a guy who I'm not sure has the athletic tools that people kind of make it out to.
Yeah, but again, I guess to close out the show,
you got some starters. You got some NFL starters
who has all the tools to be a starting quarterback and a good quarterback at the next level, and he's still on the board. Calvin Austin's a guy that I'm hoping my Buffalo Bills take a shot at, or Tariq Woolen, 2 guys that Tariq Woolen just is dripping.
Certainly exciting.
Tools. Calvin Austin is a guy that I think would bring a lot of juice to any offense in the slot. A lot of guys to keep your eyes on. Again, we talked about it. Very, very deep class. A lot of these guys could be week 1 starters. It's going to be one of the more exciting day 3 NFL drafts that we've seen in a while just because of the quality of players that are available. So
yeah, because the COVID year pushed everybody back. Like nobody came out last year. So and that's not like unique take. That's everyone's saying that.
Yeah. But you're
seeing it bear it out.
Yeah.
Because last year you had no depth at the back of the draft. It was like, like you were getting guys, everyone was getting cut.
There's guys getting picked that I haven't even heard of. And like you get into a lot of prospects. I'm like, oh, that guy. Then don't know who he
in
is.
like the 4th round. It's like
Yeah.
I don't have a clue who that guy is.
The
But
Cowboys took a guy. He was like super long from Oregon State. He's a DB, I think. I'm blanking.
the tall dude, yeah, something. He's like 6'4", 200 pounds.
Yeah,
Safety.
it was
a
just
weird
like
one.
it was like
I
guy.
didn't have a clue who that was.
Yeah. But yeah, that'll do it for our day 2 wrap up of the NFL draft. This is again, I'm just super excited for day 3. We'll be following us on Twitter for giving our takes on some of the prospects. As usual, appreciate you guys rocking with the ROC Boys. If you guys do like the content, go subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Y'all have a good night. Peace.